Welcome to the Get Real with King Arthur show. Today, I'm going to interrupt my maybe a little series on I and philosophy, and I'm going to interview Queen Victoria on a book I just read and a subject which is a study of the iGen, young people. Now, I'm going to interview Queen Victoria. For one thing, she majored in psychology at Stanford, and she is a little closer to young people than I am, since I was born in 1931, part of the silent generation. I don't know why we were silent. I wasn't. Anyway, Queen Victoria is much closer to the iGen young people, which I would say are in their teens and early 20s, perhaps. Early teens, maybe teens. The book only emphasized trends that I was already aware of, but the study is startling. It's called iGen, the 10 Trends Shaping America's Young People and the Nation by Dr.
Jean Twang.
And she was a professor at San Diego State University. And it is a must-read. It is loaded with information and statistics and opinions. It's a great book. Now, I want to interview Queen Victoria on some of the findings of the book and get her reaction to them. Our professor, I think, is even-handed, although the bottom line on iGen is very disturbing. These are young people who are wedded to their iPhones. And she finds some positive, but very disturbing negatives. For example, she says that they are not too interested in religion or spirituality. They are bored with school. They are lack social skills. They are very slow in growing up. That's good and bad. Probably the most disturbing is that they are unhappy and suicidal. Now, the basic problem is that these young people are not socially viable because they are reacting to people on the phone rather than real life. They tend not to be dating much. They're not drinking much. That's a good thing. They're not committing murder because then they're not out with other young people. And again, they are very conservative. Well, they're very safety oriented. They're not eager to get their driver's license. They're not eager to get out in the world. And so these are some of the findings. Now, Queen Victoria is much closer to this age group than I. And what do you think of these charges, Queen Victoria?
Which one specifically?
What do you think of the worst one, which is that young people are more unhappy and suicidal, especially women, girls?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I was telling you earlier at breakfast that a quote came to mind about comparison is a thief of joy. You know, we were kind of talking about that in the car, that now instead of, you know, having your community and being challenged within your community and comparing yourself to your peers in a healthy way, I think now you're comparing yourself to thousands of other people you weren't really meant to know about their life. And I mean, we could get into the pros and cons of knowing about what other people are doing. It can be a positive thing, but that statistic is showing the negative aspect of having access to so many other people's lives, that it opens you up to compare yourself. And it makes sense that girls are being affected more than boys, not saying according to that statistic. It makes sense because there is a higher or more strict beauty standards on women than there are on men. For example, it's more acceptable for a man to have wrinkles than a woman. And so it makes sense that there'd be a higher or more intense level of comparison for women than for men, causing them to have more depression.
She points out that it's especially dangerous for like junior high school or middle school, well, junior high school, middle school, young people who are so socially attuned that a negative comment can really devastate them.
Yeah, I think like with them, with like the kids now, they didn't grow up, I mean, these are the generations that are growing up with internet. Like, they didn't know life without the internet. They didn't know life without social media. So for them, social media is kind of, you know, their currency, their value. And so I could see how knowing a life only with internet, you're putting a lot of your value on what people are saying online, rather than, you know, people who kind of have seen life without social media. They know what it's like to not put your value so much on like what people are saying on the internet or online.
She points out the amount of time that some of them are spending on the internet is just outrageous.
Yeah.
And it's cutting back on their studying. It's certainly cutting back on their social activity. They're often not dating or not going out with others of their age group. And they're cutting back on sleep, which is extremely dangerous for young people. Extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And so that makes them viable psychologically for imbalance.
Yeah, like mental.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They are, of course, attention spans are very short. I was interested in the fact that they are, what their political orientation would be, and it seems to be fit mostly libertarian. They're very individualistic, very individualistic. That's why I-gen. And anything that inhibits their freedom or individuality is no go.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense from my perspective. When you're talking about that, I was thinking about how personal branding is such a big thing now. Like, you know, when you have your own profile, it's every person has their own individual profile, and you have your own individual followers, you have your own individual likes. So social media, I think, is definitely contributing to individualism, which I already think was a thing in the US especially. It's already kind of, it was already a thing, but now it's, social media is like feeding into that individualism, which can be good, but on an extreme level can be deterring, like you said, to community, I think.
I think every parent, every teacher or pastor, everyone working with this age group, I think it's a must to read, or a similar book.
Yeah.
Now, I want to move on to what to do about it. Now, our professor gives lots of advice, which I welcome. One advice she gives is that before, it's addressed to parents, and it said before you buy an iPhone for your child, you need to consider making it with a limited, so they won't be so bombarded with pornography and with all kinds of propaganda. And she also says that when you buy their iPhone, you need to set limits on how long they can look at it. And you need to monitor what they are seeing. We all know the cases of child predators who want to use the internet, iPhone, for their evil purposes. What would you suggest, Queen Victoria,
I think
to handle this issue?
Yeah, I think that she makes good points, the professor, but I mean, I didn't read the book, so I don't know what other points she makes, but from my perspective, we have to think about what not to do, which she emphasizes, like limiting time on technology, basically. I think, okay, so once we limit something, we have to replace it with something. So I think my perspective is, what can we add instead of what can we subtract? So what can we kind of talked about this, off camera, but about how it's the parents' job not to just restrict the bad, but to add to the good. So if you're gonna, say don't play on your iPad, okay, then what are you gonna do that is as equally engaging for your children? Like, are you, do they love to dance? Do they love to go outside? Do they, where can you take them? How can you make it more fun than what they're doing online? How can you make it more fun than a video game? How can you make it more fun than an enticing video? And so I think the parents not only have a responsibility to protect them from technology, but to provide create a life for them that is so engaging that they don't want to go on technology as much.
Wonderful advice, I think. Now, one suggestion she makes I find intriguing. She says they're so slow in growing up that she recommends a year between high school and college for them to travel or see the world, do something different, get out in the world before then going on to college. And I find as a college teacher that oftentimes students haven't seen much of the world and don't have questions. I'm trying to give answers to them with their studies, and they don't have the questions. So I think that's one point. Now, we have to keep this short. We'd like your reaction and suggestions. Do you think we need to pursue this longer? Because it's a very important subject. Let me end by saying, if you're working with young people, do read the book. It's also on
Audible.
On Audible, yes. Okay. Well, I hope that you're interested, I know you are, in what happens to our very wonderful, precious young people. Goodbye, and give us some reaction.